Hello everyone, this is part 5 of What If Naruto was a demigod in the Justice League, and I hope you guys enjoy this video and to like, to subscribe, and check out the playlist, to see more comment down below. Now let's start the intro.
They call me a god. They call me a god. They call me a god.
You can't be serious, a tall and athletic woman said angrily and slapped the table with her palm. But, without meaning to, she put too much strength into it and the long and luxurious conference table was smashed to bits, making everyone else back away startled. Your reaction just now proves my point, Superman said. I don't know what happened, but there is clearly something wrong with you. Over the past 2 weeks, you've been distracted, made mistakes you wouldn't make normally, and you've become very quick to anger too. Today you broke the arm of that robber and then lassoed him and dragged him on the ground to the police station. Now that was funny. It was like a scene out of a Wild West movie. Flash piped up and laughed, but he was the only one laughing. Noticing the glares everyone was directed at him, he swiftly shut up. Until you get a grip of yourself, it's best you take a break. I don't want you hurting someone for real or worse, Superman said. Green Lantern also added, you're not in control of your emotions, princess. Losing control in the field could spell disaster both for us and for other people. Superman is right. Take some time and rest. Besides, someone has to stay behind and keep an eye on the alien mercenary and his fox. Martian Manhunter suddenly called them from the control room of the watchtower. Everyone, Lex Luthor is on the move. He had stolen valuable pieces of technology from Star Labs. We have to move fast and intercept him. At the Martian's call, everyone rushed out of the conference room except for Wonder Woman. She let herself drop on the chair and with her elbows on her knees, she buried her face in her palms. She let out a deep sigh. Out of habit, an exclamation came out of her mouth. Great hero. But after realizing what she said, she gnashed her teeth and, standing up, she kicked her chair into the opposite side of the room. Ah, I see. Anger management issues. A deep voice was heard from the entrance of the room and a chortle followed. Turning around, she saw a small fox cub in the doorway with his fluffy 9 tails wagging lazily behind him. She pinched the bridge of her nose and took in a deep breath before exhaling out loud, attempting to calm herself down. Just then, a man in a wheelchair came from behind and picked the fox cub from the scruff of his neck as if he was a cat and put him in his lap. Don't tease the poor girl, Kurama. It was Naruto. A bit over 3 weeks passed since the Saiyan's annihilation, and by now, with Dr. Fate's help, all the infected natural energy had been expelled from his chakra pool and his body had reverted to normal. He was only left with a temporary feeling of weakness. In his books, he considered himself fine, nothing that a few dozen bowls of ramen could not fix, but the sorcerer insisted that he did not do any effort for a few more days, not even walking until he fully recovered. Is there something you need? Wonder Woman said stiffly. I was on my way to grab some food from the kitchen for Kurama when I heard you guys arguing. Problems in paradise. They grounded her, QB said and snickered like a hyena. Naughty girls get sent to their rooms. Naruto involuntarily sniggered too, but he quickly tried to mask it with a fake cough when he saw the woman's eyes almost spewing fire from how hard she was glaring. Why? What did you do? Seeing her refusing to answer, Naruto shrugged and turned his wheelchair around. Oh well. If you want to talk, I can lend you an ear while Kurama eats. Not waiting to hear her reply, he pushed his wheelchair out of the conference room and headed towards the elevator. He was halfway there when he felt someone push his wheelchair from behind. He let his head back and looked up to see who it was. But it was not possible to see their face due to the large pair of breasts obscuring his view. Nonetheless, it became clear to him who that was. Wow, they're so much bigger up close, was his first honest thought. But his eyes did not linger for more than 2 seconds because he practically felt QB starting to grin under his whiskers. He did not want the fox to repeat what he had done after the incident with the Queen of Almerac, Maxima. He had laughed at him for months after that. Asterism. Ridiculously loud sounds of chewing and swallowing were coming from a tiny fox as he gorged himself on food. If in the elemental nations QB could be described with one of the 7 deadly sins, it would have been the sin of wrath. In the present, however, nothing fit him better than the sin of gluttony. His stomach was like a bottomless pit. It is amazing how much he can eat no matter how many times I see it, Wonder Woman said as a means of getting the conversation started. That's not what you wanted to talk about, was it? At his question, the princess' shoulders slouched. It's a long story. I don't know where to start. Just start from the beginning. Not like I have anything else to do here, he said, and he poured himself a glass of orange juice. Why am I even talking to a stranger about these things? Wonder Woman muttered mostly to herself. You looked like you needed someone to talk to and I was bored. But it's up to you, he said easily and took a big gulp of juice from the glass. Wonder Woman sighed. It started 3,000 years ago when I was born. Sounds of coughing came from Naruto as he choked on his juice, and even the gluttonous fox stopped eating and looked at her instead with wide eyes. Did I hear well, or is my translation device broken? Did she just say she's 3,000 years old? Naruto asked Kyuubi in the native language of their homeworld. Unlike Naruto, Kyuubi did not need a translating device. He could understand any language spoken by intelligent beings in the universe naturally. No, you heard right. I can feel that she isn't lying either. Kyuubi also said in amazement. By the void, she's even older than you. Naruto said in disbelief. And I thought Tsunade was a granny posing as a young woman when she was only in her 50s, but this girl, no, this woman is a grand many times grandmother. He did not finish his words because Wonder Woman suddenly grabbed him from the collar of his sweatshirt. Do you want to spend the rest of your life in that wheelchair? I'm in danger. Naruto chuckled awkwardly. Kurama, a little help. I'm still a patient. Relax, she doesn't have any ill intent, Kyuubi said and went back to eating. Wonder Woman did feel like wanting to smack him once, but when she sensed the killing intent lying dormant inside the fox, she wisely decided to let go of Naruto and sat back on her chair. Are you always that short-tempered? Sheesh. Naruto complained as he smoothed the wrinkles on his shirt after she let go of him. Wonder Woman appeared to be distracted by his words. In truth, she was usually nowhere near as impulsive as she had become as of late. Anyway, I was at fault too, he continued. Looks like no matter the planet or race, all women are sensitive about their age. Should have kept my mouth shut. Hold up, how did you even know what I was saying? Goddess Athena's blessing allows me to communicate with people regardless of their language. Wonder Woman said, and he made an impressed sound. That's so convenient. But 3,000 years, that's even more than the entire recorded history of my homeworld. It's crazy when I think about it. As someone who's lived for so long, what exactly managed to rattle you that badly? Understanding what Naruto was implying, Wonder Woman shook her head. Although I've lived for so long, I'm not as experienced in life as you think. Until about a year ago, I lived on the island of Paradise, with my Amazon sisters, away from the evils of the world. I didn't go through any problems or difficulties until I came to the man's world. On Themyscira it was different. Just like me, my mother and my fellow Amazon sisters, everyone else was immortal. There were no crimes and any conflicts that we might have had we solved them in a fair fight on the training grounds. It was paradise. I didn't notice the passing of time the way I do now when I live among regular people. We would spend most of our days training, singing, praying to the gods and... She trailed off seemingly at a loss. And, what else? Naruto asked. That's all we did, she said uncomfortably, suddenly becoming aware of how wrong that sounded. That's all you did for 3,000 years. Naruto looked at her as if she had grown two heads. He had lived for only around 110 years, but he had had so many adventures back in his homeworld and then during his travels as an intergalactic mercenary that he could fill tens of books with them. I could probably earn a living just from writing novels about my adventures and selling them, he mused. Numerous life and death battles, hilarious moments, embarrassing incidents, the thousands of different places he had seen, the different creatures and races he had encountered and so on. All that, in less than 120 years. Yet someone like Wonder Woman who had lived for over 3,000 years resumed her life experiences in one sentence: training, singing and praying. How can someone live such a dull life and not get sick of it? It's freaking 3,000 years. A look of helplessness flashed on Wonder Woman's face. With her intelligence, once she became aware of it, it was not difficult to deduce that the Amazons not noticing the passing of time and them never getting sick and tired of doing the same thing, training, all over again for thousands of years, was not natural. It was because of the gods. A spell must have been cast on Themyscira to make them mindlessly chase just one goal, that of protecting the gates of Tartarus and nothing else. They were like attack dogs trained and locked up to protect a courtyard, never to leave or even think of escaping. I don't know what to think anymore. I don't know what I should do, she said in exhaustion. She had never been as confused and mentally exhausted as that before, and that led to moments like the previous scene when her bottled up emotions blew up and she smashed the table in the conference room with a slap. Wonder Woman did not have any real close friends to confide in either. Hawkgirl, the only other woman in the Justice League, was not exactly her biggest fan and the others were men. She was not particularly close to anyone. She could not talk to others about what was tormenting her. Naruto did not have Kyuubi's negative emotion sensing, but he did not need a special skill to understand what she was going through at that moment. Although he had given up on trying to change people and the world a long time ago, his innate gift of connecting with people had never disappeared. Neji Hyuga, Gaara of the Sand, Nagato Uzumaki and even Obito Uchiha, they were people that used to hate him and even tried to maim or kill him, but they were all changed by him in the end. Mortal enemies became his best friends and even sacrificed their lives to right their wrongs. Kyuubi often laughed at him when they reminisced about their past, saying that his most powerful technique when he was young was not his Rasen Shuriken but his Talk no Jutsu. He had always had the talent to make people open up to him with but a few words. The same thing was happening with Diana in the present too. Despite that he was a stranger, she felt a strong urge to confide her circumstances to him, something that she had not done even with the rest of the Justice League. The fact that she did not have any close friends did not do her situation any favors either. All my life I believed that I had been sculpted from clay and given life by the gods. For thousands of years, my faith in them has never wavered. But now, Wonder Woman stopped as though she was afraid to continue talking because if she did, her words would be blasphemy against the gods. Her lower lip trembled but her teeth sunk into it. 2 weeks ago I found out everything was a lie. I was born like a normal baby but not in normal circumstances. My mother was raped by the king of the gods I used to worship. And now, his wife, one of the patron goddesses of the Amazons, will try to kill me the moment she finds out her husband cheated on her again. Where is the justice in that? These are the gods I worshipped for thousands of years. I'm fighting to protect justice in the name of a rapist and a lawless and murderous jealous wife that wants to kill me. She let her back fall on the backrest of her chair. She was not crying, but the defeat and powerlessness in her voice spoke volumes of her feelings. She was exhausted by her inner conflict between the faith she had been raised with and the cruel reality. 3,000 years of blind faith in the gods could not be so easily erased from her heart despite her rationality speaking up against it. You said you left your paradise island about a year ago, right? Why did you leave it? What drove you to come out after 3,000 years? Naruto asked. Wonder Woman replied. A race of alien conquerors invaded the Earth and almost conquered it. I came out to help everyone, to prevent that from happening. Naruto made a humming sound. Did your gods send you to do that? He asked. She shook her head in negative. No. Actually, Amazons are forbidden to leave Themyscira. We are bound to guard that place for eternity. He almost smiled at her words. So you left your home against the will of the gods? It was a rhetorical question, so he did not expect her to answer. He continued. You came out, against the will of your gods, to fight against the invaders. You didn't do it for the gods or in their name. You did it to protect the innocent. At those words, she raised her head and looked him in the eyes. Despite his rather scary appearance with his beast-like red slit eyes and thick black whisker-like marks on his face, at that moment, Wonder Woman did not feel any apprehension or trepidation when she looked at him. I can't put myself in your shoes. I can't imagine how it is to blindly believe in a god for thousands of years only to find out that he raped your mother. But what I can say is that the most important thing is to stay true to your values. It's not your origins that define you. It's not the gods who decide who you are. Your values and your actions are what define you as a person. He made a small pause before saying one last thing. Look at your past deeds and ask yourself again, who am I? I trust the answer will be much easier for you to find now. Asterism. Put me on trials, lock me up, but I'll beat it. Watch. I'll be out in days. A bald man said, but a green construct of light took the shape of cuffs around his wrists and he was thrown roughly to the ground. Even with the strength of his power suit, he could not break free. Sorry, I messed up back there. Flash apologized after Lex Luthor was taken by the police and arrested. Apology accepted, Superman said with a smile. After all, although Flash did make a mistake, it was still he who dismantled Lex Luthor's weapon and beat him down in the end. As soon as the damage is fixed. Got a second? Flash said with a smirk, and a red blur put everything in the room in order in the blink of an eye. Just then, a yellow portal was opened in the wall of the room. A green-skinned humanoid wearing a black suit and a dark blue cloak stepped out of it. Who are you? Martian Manhunter asked. I'm you, the newcomer replied. He was identical in looks to Martian Manhunter. He proceeded to explain that he was from another dimension and that both of their worlds were facing a crisis. And the dimensions appear to be collapsing on each other. Our Batman built this portal to try to find help. But what can we do? Green Lantern asked. We're not sure yet, the other dimension Martian replied. But my dimension seems to be at the center of it, and that would be the best place to start looking for an answer. While the other Martian was explaining his plan to the rest of the Justice League, Batman secretly asked Martian Manhunter. Have you read his mind yet? Martians don't do that to one another. John Johns answered. Can't, or won't? Batman asked. Both, he replied. At that moment, Superman asked everyone. So it's agreed then, we go. Sure. Okay. Flash agreed. Right, Hawkgirl said too. What about your dimensions, Wonder Woman? The other Martian asked. Wonder Woman is indisposed at the moment. She is temporarily not taking part in the Justice League's activities. Martian Manhunter answered to his counterpart. With everyone's approval, the Justice League followed the other dimension Martian into the portal. As the last two to enter, Batman and Martian Manhunter stopped before stepping through the portal. It might be for the best that Wonder Woman is not together with us, Batman said. Can you send her a telepathic message and inform her of the situation? Why? Do you think they are planning something? Martian Manhunter asked. I don't know, but it's always better to have insurance. Martian Manhunter looked at him blankly. Although he thought that Batman was just being his usual self, never fully trusting anyone, and despite that he did not have any reason to not trust his other self from the other dimension, he still did as Batman asked him and contacted Wonder Woman telepathically. I've told you about Themyscira. What about you? Where do you come from? Wonder Woman asked curiously. After talking to Naruto about the worries and frustration weighing on her, she became noticeably calmer and more relaxed. With fewer things clouding her mind, she was free now to think about other things as well, and that moment looked like the perfect opportunity to find out more about him. Any information she could get in regards to him might prove to be very useful for the Justice League later on. My homeworld revolved around the use of chakra. To put it simply, controlling the elements of nature with magic. Because of that, we called it the Elemental Nations. As for where it is, I don't know. An enemy of mine, because she could not defeat me, pushed me into a dimensional portal. It's been almost 98 years since then. All this time I've been searching for a way back home, but to no avail. I have given up on it. Even if I did find a way back home right now, of what use would it be anymore? By now, everyone I've ever known would be dead. What he said was very depressing, but his expression was serene. He had come to terms with it. Almost a century of being obsessed with it was more than enough. Thanks to QB, he had finally let go of it half a year ago. So your people don't live as long as you do. Most people back in my homeworld were regular humans, just like the ones on Earth. I was not much different when I was born either. It's through years and years of bitter training that regular people could become superhuman back on my planet. We called ourselves Shinobi. But Shinobi didn't live long lives. Our world was ridden with wars. 4 world wars took place in less than 8 decades. Heck, just in 4 years, my nation was invaded 2 times and even razed to the ground. Most Shinobi didn't pass the age of 60. There was too much war, too much killing. Even so, it was my home. Wonder Woman could not mask her surprise. You were an ordinary human too. You mean that everyone can achieve that kind of strength just through training? QB stopped eating at that moment and snorted. HNG, as if. He forgot to say that he is the reincarnation of the son of a god and that I was his source of power for over 40 years. No regular human could ever reach that level of power. Most Shinobi were so weak that I could kill hundreds of them with just a swipe of my tails. Naruto scratched the back of his head and chuckled. He's right. That's also why I look like this, he admitted and gestured to his face. Hard work was a major reason why he became so powerful, but he could not downplay the importance of his background as Ashura's reincarnation or Kyuubi's Jinchuriki either. At that, her eyes were involuntarily drawn to the dark scars on his cheeks and the slit pupils and red irises of his eyes. She was not sure what the fox's words meant exactly, but when she was about to ask another question, Martian Manhunter's voice rang in her mind. Wonder Woman, it's me, John Johns. After we arrested Lex Luthor in Metropolis, a portal appeared and someone that looked just like me came out. It was me from another dimension, similar to ours. Now we're all crossing over to their dimension to help them with their crisis, but Batman thought you ought to know that and stay vigilant. Wait, John. She wanted to ask for more details, but their mental connection was severed because Martian Manhunter and Batman stepped through the portal, crossing into the other dimension. She stood up from the table and said, "Thank you for listening to my problems. It was of great help for me to talk about it, it made me feel more at peace. But now something urgent came up and I have to go." After saying that, she rushed out of the room. Pushing the wheels with all his strength, Naruto's wheelchair became comically fast enough to even catch up to the running princess from behind. A distracted look appeared on her face when she turned her head around and saw the speeding wheelchair hot on her trail, and she found herself smiling in amusement. But that smile quickly turned into full-blown laughter when she saw a tiny fox also coming from behind, running but with all kinds of meat and other food wrapped into his 9 tails. Still giggling, she stopped and said, "Why are you two following me? You can't be thinking of coming with me. Superman and the others won't let me live it down if I let you leave the watchtower." "Oh come on, what's the worst that could happen? I'm in a wheelchair. It's not you that I'm worried about," she said. But as Wonder Woman's eyes trailed to the 9-tailed fox that was running towards them as fast as his tiny limbs could take him, her resistance almost melted. Adorable. She was finding it difficult to imagine that a fox cub as cute and as harmless looking as that could transform into a half-a-mile-long behemoth and destroy a planet. Finally catching up to them, Kyuubi swallowed the remaining food in his jaws and said, "Stop worrying over nothing. Even if all of you were together, you'd have no way to stop me if I wanted to do something. We've been cooped up in this satellite for more than 3 weeks. I want to see the world below and get some fresh air. You know, I'm not going down to relax. It's Justice League business," Wonder Woman retorted. "You could fight it out and then lose and still do our way. Or you might as well take the chance to strike up a friendship with us. At least that's what I would do if I were you." Naruto looked at the fox weirdly. When has Kyuubi ever taken the initiative to approach someone just to become friends with them? Naruto had been together with Kyuubi for over 100 years and he had never seen the fox offering his friendship to someone other than him while having no ulterior reasons. Mildly amused, he decided to just go with the flow. Surprisingly enough, the stoic princess caved in under the fox's persuasion very quickly. Just then, Naruto's red slit eyes happened to meet with Kyuubi's red slit ones too. Having lived together for so long, Naruto could discern every little bit of emotion in the fox's eyes and on his face. How could he have not noticed the shrewd look Kyuubi had thrown his way? "What is your mind cooking up this time, Kurama?" But just like Naruto could read Kyuubi like a book, it went the other way around too. When had Naruto ever talked to someone about his private life or his native homeworld? The answer was almost never. Until then, he had consciously gone out of his way to not become attached to other people, and he avoided personal conversations too. He had only been obsessed with finding a way back home and doing business, his work as a mercenary, in order to support his space travel expeditions. There had been no room for friends or other types of relationships in his life. However, over the last few days, Naruto talked about his past with Dr. Fate and with Wonder Woman too. Seeing Naruto finally start opening up to people, even if just a tiny bit, made Kyuubi happy. And they were not just random people. With his negative emotion sensing, Kyuubi could discern a person's true nature, and he approved of both Dr. Fate and Wonder Woman's characters. Unknowingly, the fox had taken over the role of a father watching over his son. All he wanted now was for Naruto to be happy. Asterism. When Naruto, Kyuubi and Wonder Woman arrived in Metropolis, it was already night. But just as they got out of the javelin, a distant boom resounded over the entire traffic of a city of millions. "There is trouble," Wonder Woman said. "Please don't do anything to break the law and don't destroy those trackers. You promised." Not waiting for an answer, she took flight urgently towards the place from where the booming noises were coming. Hey, wanna see what's going on? Naruto asked after the princess left. Kyuubi narrowed his eyes at him. Don't give me that look. No way I'm letting you ride on me. Kyuubi barked at him. Why not? You have no issues with it when I'm giving you chakra in return, hey. It's different when I'm the size of a mountain. You're no bigger than a fly then. But now, how do you want me to carry you? Idiot. Just get as big as a horse or something, Naruto said with a smirk. He knew exactly what buttons to push to make the fox angry at him. I'm not your mount. I'll kick your ass, asshole. Kyuubi shouted. Naruto chuckled in amusement. The fox was over 1,000 years old, but he fell prey so often to such small provocations. His pride truly knew no bounds. Calm down, he said with a smile and then stood up from his wheelchair. Now standing on his feet, he stretched his stiff back and limbs until he heard a satisfying pop. He was still not at 100%, but that did not mean he was a vegetable. He had used a wheelchair over the past few days mostly to lower the Justice League's guard against him rather than not doing any effort because of Dr. Fate's nagging. Ha! As I thought, you were pretending. Kyuubi shouted triumphantly. But I wasn't. I still feel a bit faint and dizzy when I stand. For example, I can't use wind chakra to fly right now, but I guess that some simple wall dashing is not too much for my current condition. With that, he left the wheelchair by the javelin and jumped high into the air, landing on top of the roof of a smaller building nearby. He made a slow clawing motion over his face with his hand and a white Anbu-style fox mask appeared. Just as he was getting ready to jump onto another rooftop, a small weight suddenly landed on his shoulder. It was none other than Kyuubi. So you don't want to carry me around, but when I carry you around it's fine, eh? Not this time, boy. Naruto said and grabbed the fox cub by the scruff of his neck and threw him off the building. Naruto! Kyuubi screamed as he fell. Wahaha! Naruto laughed out loud and jumped off without a care in the world. He was still in midair, halfway across the distance between the two buildings' rooftops when a furry red appendage wrapped around one of his ankles. His laughter abruptly died in his throat and this time it was his turn to yell. Kurama! He hollered as he fell to the ground, dragged down by the fox that had suddenly become as large as a horse, like Naruto had asked. One man screaming and one fox laughing, the two of them crashed onto one of the cars parked below, completely flattening it and making alarms blare all around them from the surrounding cars. For a moment, they glared at each other but then they started barking with laughter. Asterism. While Kyuubi and Naruto were play fighting and fooling around like man-children, the situation was completely different on the other side of Metropolis. An 8 feet tall humanoid monstrosity was destroying everything in its sight. The alien was gray-skinned, extremely muscular and vicious-looking bone spike protruded from his shoulders, arms and head. Wonder Woman arrived in time to see the Justice League fight against him. They're different. If the different costumes were not enough to tip her off, seeing a twin version of herself, her counterpart from the other dimension, was enough to convince her of that. But, as a trained warrior, she also took notice of how well they coordinated with each other as a team. It was not something that she and the other members of the Justice League were capable of. Her first impulse was to join the fight and help them subdue the monster, but she stopped herself from doing that. She could not exactly put her finger on what was wrong, but Martian Manhunter's telepathic message and the fact that she could not see the Justice League of her dimension were making her wary. They don't look like they need my help anyway, she thought. She decided to take on a wait-and-see approach. Not long after her arrival, though, she noticed a masked man with a fox cub on his shoulder appearing on the rooftop, right next to her. Coincidentally, it was also at that moment that the gray-skinned alien started fighting back against the other dimension Justice League even more fiercely than before. He shattered a railway bridge, making the Wonder Woman of the other dimension rush to stop the train before it fell off to all the passengers' deaths, and then he almost knocked out Hawkgirl with an uppercut and blew up a car's gas tank into Martian Manhunter's face, almost taking him out too. With seemingly endless energy, he also jumped at the black and white costumed Superman and started to slam him against the ground and the walls of the nearby buildings like a ragdoll. $20 on the ugly guy, Kyuubi said, making Naruto chuckle. I bet on the edgy Superman. Kryptonians are tough nuts to crack and this guy isn't a pushover like the other Superman we know. Seeing two identical Amazonian princesses and the rest of the Justice League wearing different costumes, it was not difficult for Naruto to deduce that they were not the Justice League he knew. Wonder Woman frowned when she heard the two of them chit-chatting and making light of the current situation, but she did not comment on it because just then, the monster slammed the black and white costumed Superman so hard that it made a crater in the street below. However, despite the violent slam, Superman stood up with no apparent difficulty. "What do you want?" the other dimension Superman said. The muscular and gray-skinned alien walked towards him slowly, his monstrous physique being seen even more clearly now under the lights coming from a helicopter flying above. "Same as you, I imagine," the alien's coarse voice rang. "Power. Control. But I had to see the best this planet had to offer. I am not impressed." At those words, Superman narrowed his eyes and lunged at him. Asterisk boom. A shockwave exploded from the impact of the gray-skinned alien's fist against Superman's face, and it shattered all the glass and windows of the buildings and cars 300 feet around them. "Dame, that's some serious strength." Naruto whistled, impressed. "Superman." Diana cried out in distress and was about to jump off from the sidelines and finally join the fight, but two red tails suddenly wrapped around her wrists, stopping her. "What's the big idea? Let go of me," she shouted at QB, but he said seriously. "Naruto and I made a bet. The fight is not over yet, so don't butt in." "Pooh-hoo." Naruto almost burst into laughter, but he quickly masked it with a fake cough. Momentarily, Diana didn't know how to react to how ridiculous that statement was. "Don't worry, I'll stop your friend from getting mangled if it comes down to it." At those words, Diana remembered just who exactly the tiny fox that had immobilized her was. Especially feeling the incredible strength in the tails restraining her, she no longer had any doubts about QB's powers. The muscular alien came to the new crater that Superman had made with his body. "You think you can hurt me?" he said, and his massive foot stomped on Superman's prone body several times, further burying him into the ground. "My skin can withstand a nuclear explosion." He grabbed Superman by the neck, raised him in the air and prepared to throw another devastating punch. "My bones are." But just as he was speaking, two beams of red light came from Superman's eyes and hit him right in the forehead. Drool came from the corner of the creature's mouth and he lost all strength in his limbs, falling to the ground on his knees. QB no longer needed to restrain Diana because she stopped trying to break free, too startled by what she had just witnessed. Superman had just lobotomized someone in front of so many people. "What the hell, you really never lose a bet, do you?" QB said, irritated. Naruto shook his head and admonished. Kurama, have I ever lost a bet? Over a century has passed yet you never learn your lesson. TSK. Shame on you." The fox growled unhappily but did not retort. That creature single-handedly almost defeated the Justice League. Why are those humans even pointing their backwater crappy guns at him? "Tell me, Naruto, why are most humans so stupid?" Naruto chuckled at QB's abrasive words. It did look ridiculous to him too that the policemen were pointing their pistols at the alien creature and then tried to cuff his hands. It was as if they had not just watched how he tanked Green Lantern's power ring blasts without even getting scratched. A huge swarm of reporters popped out seemingly out of nowhere and flocked around the Justice League, throwing dozens of questions at the same time. "You lobotomized him," Lois Lane said, her voice betraying her shock. "What's your question, Lois?" Superman asked curtly. It's so out of character," she added. "It's about time if you ask me," one of the nearby journalists said, and many others voiced their agreement. "That's right. Absolutely," another one among the reporters asked. "And what's with the new costumes, guys? We just felt it was time for a change," the black and white costumed Superman said. After the Justice Lords took flight and left the group of reporters behind, Diana suddenly flew in front of them, cutting their way. "Where is the rest of the Justice League? And what were you thinking? How could you lobotomize someone in front of the whole world?" The 5 Justice Lords members stopped in their flight and looked at each other. It was the other dimension Wonder Woman that replied to her. "If you were raised anything like I was, you would be an Amazon. You should be no stranger to the concept of not showing mercy to your enemy." Diana clenched her hands into fists. Even if that was the case, why do it publicly? Turning towards Superman, she said, "I don't know what is the situation back in your world, but here the Justice League is a symbol of hope. Not of terror. We don't just take the law in our hands to punish whomever we please." Justice Lord Green Lantern retorted. "You think we were any different at first? We tried the same route back in our dimension too. Until our Flash was murdered and Luthor crawled his way up to become the United States President. Do you know what happened? He triggered World War III. Justice Lord Superman also said, democracy is nice. But the problem with it is that it doesn't keep you very safe. Too much freedom leads to chaos, and chaos leads to war, death, and misery. If we hadn't taken control of our dimension with an iron fist, the world would have been destroyed. Do you think hope or honor or honesty are what keep people in line? No. What keeps them in line is fear. I lobotomized that creature in front of the whole world, for them to understand that crimes will not be tolerated anymore. For all the villains to learn what fear means. Diana could not help shouting. Do you even hear yourself? How are you any different from Darkseid? He also keeps the peace on all the planets he had conquered. That's not peace. It's terror. Justice Lord Hawkgirl's mace began crackling with electricity, and she said, Batman was right when he said they wouldn't want our kind of help. That they wouldn't understand. Good thing that we've captured the rest already. With no further ado, she lunged at Diana and swung her mace at her wildly. Diana blocked the mace with her wrist guards, but the electricity made her shout from pain and lose control over her flight. She had awakened as a demigoddess, as the daughter of Zeus, who was the god of lightning, so normal electricity should have not been able to harm her. However, Hawkgirl's mace was made of the North Metal, a metal capable of disrupting all forms of magic. The North Metal was the bane of all magical existences, and magic was what protected Diana and gave her supernatural powers. Before Diana could right herself in the air, Green Lantern followed up with a concentrated blast of green light, and then the other dimension Wonder Woman grabbed Diana's arms from the back and locked her in a Nelson hold. Right away, Superman came to the immobilized Diana and he punched her in the stomach with all his strength, creating a shockwave no smaller than the one that the gray-skinned alien made when he punched him, blasting all the glass windows in the vicinity. Spittle flew out of Diana's mouth and her eyes rolled in the back of her head. Did you have to hit her that hard? The other dimension Wonder Woman said with a frown. I know exactly how tough you are, princess. Your physique is not much below mine. If she was anything like you, she wouldn't stay down unless I used my full strength. Superman justified himself. From the start to finish, the other dimension's Hawkgirl, Green Lantern, Wonder Woman and Superman's teamwork was completely flawless. With the four of them working together against her, Diana was not given a chance to react in any way. Green Lantern used his power ring to envelop the now unconscious Diana in a bubble of green light, intent on taking her away, but a smoke bomb suddenly exploded in the Justice Lord's midst. Before anyone could make sense of the sudden situation, a massive appendage slammed against Green Lantern, sending him crashing into the ground like a cannonball. It was an enormous crimson-red tail. John! Hawkgirl cried out and dived down after him. But when she broke away from the group, a voice came from the side. Futon, vacuum bullets. 4 bullets made of highly pressurized wind perforated Hawkgirl's feathered wings. Screaming in pain, she crashed into the ground not far from where Green Lantern was lying unconscious. Superman came to his senses immediately, in less than 3 seconds. However, for a powerful shinobi launching a surprise attack, 2 seconds were more than enough to reap the life of 2 unsuspecting people if he desired so, especially while working together with a tailed beast. Superman inhaled sharply and then blew out a powerful gale of wind from his lungs, scattering the curtain of smoke previously clouding the air. John! Shiera! Superman yelled when he saw the unconscious Green Lantern and Hawkgirl and the blood flowing from her wings. He turned to the attacker with rage in his eyes. Who are you? He shouted. Why did you attack us? Once the smoke was completely scattered, the remaining 3 members of the Justice Lords, Superman, Wonder Woman, and Martian Manhunter were able to finally see who had attacked them. In front of them, an enormous 9-tailed fox blocked the very wide boulevard below with its sheer size alone, and the tips of his tails rose even higher than the skyscrapers of Metropolis City. The low growl that came from the fox next made their blood almost congeal in their veins. On top of the gigantic crimson-red beast, a fox-masked man stood while holding a woman in his arms. It was the unconscious Diana. Why did you attack her? Naruto asked back. A tense silence was instilled as the 3 still conscious members of the Justice Lords glared at the enormous beast and the masked man standing on top of it. It looks like they want to have a go at it. Kurama, prepare some fire for me. Naruto said and laughed coldly. He was too weakened to use complex nature transformation techniques like his Rasen Shuriken, but regular jutsu were not beyond him. It was Kyuubi that was going to provide the main firepower anyway. He put the unconscious Diana down on QB's thick fur and his hands moved through a series of hand seals so fast that they were almost impossible to discern with the naked eye. Futon. Blazing whirlwind. An enormous stream of fire was shot from the Bijuu's large mouth and a vortex of pressurized wind was shot from Naruto's mouth as well. According to the 5 elements rock paper scissors system, wind was weak against fire because fire fed on wind. But when these 2 elements were combined, an even more powerful technique would be created. The stream of fire pouring out of QB's mouth was combined with the vortex of pressurized wind coming from Naruto's lungs and a terrifying tornado of fire took birth. The thousands of people below watched with trepidation the scene taking place above their city. The vortex of fire made the night sky appear almost as bright as the day. It engulfed the 3 Justice Lords, completely obscuring their silhouettes from view. The humans below could not see that Superman had tried to blow icy wind from his mouth with all his strength, but his actions were no different than that of a regular person trying to extinguish a conflagration by spitting on it. His Kryptonian powers were greatly restrained by magic. After only a few seconds, Naruto abruptly clapped his hands and the terrible wind and fire technique was instantly snuffed out, disappearing like magic. 2 silhouettes collapsed to the ground with their skin and clothes burnt up. They were unconscious. The only one still flying was the other dimension Wonder Woman, but she was in no better condition either. She was still standing only due to the magical nature of her abilities offering her a better degree of protection against magical attacks. Even so, she was on her last legs. Naruto's voice came from above QB's head. Although Wonder Woman was flying at a considerable distance from him, every word spoken by Naruto was heard as well as if they were spoken right into her ears. I don't care about how your dimension is. I don't care what philosophy is right and what is wrong. To me, your squabbles are insignificant. However, he said this word with a drawl, when I was at my lowest, the Justice League offered me asylum and they even nursed me back to health. I owe them a favor. The other dimension Wonder Woman grit her teeth in unwillingness. If you had not attacked us by surprise, do you think you could have gotten one over us? She shouted at him. A deep rumble made the skyscrapers around reverberate when laughter came from the Titanic Fox's mouth. Naruto chuckled as well at her words. Don't tell me you also want a referee and 3 judges to score our match the next time we fight. He said in ridicule. What is this, some play fighting exhibition? Saying that, Naruto's and QB's obnoxious laughter reverberated through the city. Seizing the opportunity to attack is a form of strength as well. You're over 3,000 years old, how have you not learned that even to this day? He said, still sniggering. Naruto moved his hands and pressurized blades of wind gathered around his body like ribbons. With a flick of his wrist, a ribbon of pressurized wind suddenly slammed into the other dimension Wonder Woman like a whip and hurled her crashing into the ground right next to the rest of the Justice Lords. Aside from her, they were all unconscious. I don't care how you do it, you have 4 hours to release the Justice League from wherever you're keeping them. Otherwise, one of the sharp ribbons of wind dancing around his body suddenly extended to grab the unconscious Justice Lord Superman from the ground and yanked him up. Your dear leader here will die. The black and white costumed Superman was brought on top of QB's enormous head and thrown down not far from Diana. Remember, Naruto said to the other dimension Wonder Woman, you have 4 hours. I'll wait for you here, in this city. After saying those words, the enormous fox shrunk down in size and then, the 4 of them vanished into thin air. Asterism. It was still the same night, only 2 hours after the Justice Lords fought against Doomsday and Naruto and QB, that a portal was opened in a side alley, somewhere in Metropolis. Batman, Superman, Martian Manhunter, Flash and Green Lantern, who was holding a slumbering Hawkgirl, stepped out of the portal, returning to their dimension. Thanks to Flash, who had managed to stop his heartbeats and fool the other dimension Batman into freeing him from his cuffs, the Justice League managed to escape from their cells. Eventually, Batman convinced his other dimension counterpart to activate the portal and let them come back to their original dimension. They are as strong as we are and just as smart. But they are willing to kill. They will not hold back. We can't win like that. Batman said. What are you saying? That we have to be willing to kill too? Superman shot back, outraged. I won't cross that line. Then how else can we stop them? Batman asked. You're the smart one, you figure it out, Superman said. Batman narrowed his eyes in thought. We can't do it. Not unless we cross some kind of line too. But as he said those words, he suddenly got an idea. When he looked up, However, he noticed that a strange mood appeared among them. Am I right to guess that you're all thinking about the same thing as I do? Batman asked. Flash grinned. The alien mercenary and his fox, right. He said he owes us a favor. Just the perfect time to cash it in. I hate to admit it, but with his help, beating back the Justice Lords doesn't seem far-fetched at all. Superman said too. Little did the Justice League know that Naruto had already more than held his end of the bargain. The six of them barely stepped out of the side alley into the main street when the portal that had brought them back before was opened once again. The other dimension Batman came out of the portal hurriedly, and even with the mask covering half of his face, the Justice League could sense how distressed he was. Just then, the other dimension Wonder Woman also appeared from the corner of the street, dragging herself by learning on the walls of the buildings. The other dimension Batman ran towards Wonder Woman, who stumbled and fell on the ground. He wanted to roll her over, but he hesitated for a moment. He did not even know where to grab her from because her arms and shoulders were covered in burns. Some magician with a giant beast almost killed us all, the other dimension Wonder Woman said with difficulty after Batman rolled her on her back. The members of the Justice League looked at each other sharply at the same time. Naturally, their reactions did not escape the other dimension Batman's eyes. What's she talking about? Do you know that guy? He glowered at them. He has captured Superman. If we don't return the Justice League in 4 hours, he said he'll kill him, the other dimension Wonder Woman said. Then, her eyes closed off and she fell into a deep slumber. In her delirium, she had not even noticed the fact the Justice League she had been talking about was standing right next to her. Asterism. When Justice Lord Superman regained consciousness, he found himself inside a spaceship. Looking around, he recognized the ship as the Javelin used by the Justice Lords. Looks like the Justice League uses the same ships as we do. Despite the familiar surroundings, he was not mistaken by his current situation because his entire body was burning. First and second degree burns were covering his arms and chest and even parts of his face. With his Kryptonian physiology, he could not remember when was the last time he had been hurt as badly as that. But the fox's flames were of a magical nature and they were even hotter than the sun. He was a magic user. Ugh. A groan came out of his mouth. He hated magic. You're awake so quickly even after an attack like that. Hearing that voice, his body stiffened. Following the sound, he saw a man wearing a white fox mask and a dark combat suit partially covered by a fur-collared cloak kneeling next to Diana, who was lying unconscious on the floor of the ship. Justice Lord Superman instinctively tried to jump up to his feet and lunge at him, but the moment he moved, an arc of electricity zapped him and his body shook uncontrollably while he cried in agonizing pain. A chuckle came from the masked man, but he did not even deign him with a glance. His hands became coated in a cyan light and he placed them on top of Diana's chest. The mystical palm technique was the bread and butter of any medic shinobi in his homeworld. It was not exceedingly difficult, but it was required for one to have a nigh-perfect chakra control in order to cast it. In his current condition, Naruto needed to focus more than usual to cast it properly. What did you do to me? Justice Lord Superman asked through gnashed teeth. It was QB that answered him. He was now back to his tiny form, a little fox. Where I came from, it was called Fuinjutsu. Nasty shit, I'm telling you. Even I got murked by Fuinjutsu at some point in the past. In this world, people call it magic, but it's the same thing. So pipe down and don't make a move unless you want your ass roasted. Ha ha. Superman watched for a few moments how Naruto continued to heal Diana, but there were dozens of questions in his mind. What happened to the others? And why did you capture me? What are you planning? The more he spoke, the angrier he became, and he unconsciously tried to move once more, only to be electrocuted and made to scream in agony again. QB snickered like a hyena at the sight of his suffering. Stupid. Are you a masochist? Naruto's control over his mystical palm technique was broken when he snorted with laughter. Don't make me laugh, Kurama, or I can't focus. And you there, shut your pee hole. No one is dead, I only took you hostage until your pals released the rest of the Justice League, he said to Justice Lord Superman. After that, he knelt on the floor and went back to healing Diana. He's gonna kill you, you know. QB said snidely and snickered. If your friends don't release the Justice League in 2 hours, you're as good as dead. Naruto stopped his mystical palm technique again. Kurama, I swear to the void. Luckily for Naruto, he was wearing his mask, or otherwise QB would have seen the traitorous grin on his face in spite of his different words. Though Naruto wanted to concentrate on healing Diana, QB was making it very hard for him to focus. It always cracked him up to see the fox toying with his prey. Oh come on, what's the fun in that? Don't worry about your princess, she's fine. QB exhorted. What? She's not my princess. This dickhead hit her so hard that you'd think he was trying to kill her. I owe the Justice League a favor, so I'm just making sure that she is fine. Nothing more than that, the fox said, his voice dripping with all kinds of insinuations. Nothing more, Naruto bit out. QB chortled at his overreaction, but he didn't press the issue. Now that it was silence again, Naruto went back to channeling the mystic palm technique. Ya no, I've never eaten a Kryptonian before. I wonder how they taste like. QB said after a while. Naruto stood up in annoyance. Alright, that's it, he said, and grabbed QB by the scruff of his neck like one would grab a naughty cat and threw him out of the javelin. He was about to start casting the healing technique again, but he could not help stopping in his tracks when a massive head appeared on the front window of the ship. QB had grown very large and pressed his huge head against the window of the cockpit, staring at Justice Lord Superman unblinkingly and licking his whiskers in a hungry fashion. Naruto finally gave up. He burst into laughter. That will be it for this video. If you want more, comment down below, like, subscribe. And see you guys later.